Tropical Storm Noru, Philippine name Karding, is threatening the central island of the Philippines, that being Luzon, and it will be making a landfall probably within the next 24 to 30 hours. Your latest update brought to you by Force 13 on this storm threat this September 24th, 2022 at 3 p.m. Philippine Standard Time. The storm has been displaying a pretty decent satellite appearance. We'll be getting into that, plus more in this update, so please consider watching to the end to be fully briefed on this system. Make sure to subscribe to the channel as well and leave a like on the video while you're at it and tell us how it can improve in the comments section down below. Let's jump straight into it with a forecast track map for Tropical Storm Noru, Philippine name Karding. It's currently in the Philippines area of responsibility with winds of 60 miles an hour, pressure of 994 millibars, 10-minute sustained winds of 80 kilometers an hour, located at 16.4 degrees north, 128 degrees east, and moving west-southwest at 12 miles an hour, that is 18 kilometers an hour, at 3 p.m. Philippine Standard Time. So here's a look at the little forecast track map that I've done up here. So the storm is expected to make landfall as a Category 1 hurricane equivalent system with winds of 90 miles an hour in around that sort of 30-hour mark or so. It'll be rapidly intensifying right up towards landfall. It is a quickly intensifying system at this time, and it could be a little bit stronger than what we're expecting. And as it enters the South China Sea, we could also be seeing a strong storm there with a landfall on Vietnam somewhere within the realm of 100 to 105 miles per hour expected. And that lines up with the Joint Typhoon Warning Center's latest forecast cone. The Joint Typhoon Warning Center actually expecting a strong typhoon, probably a Category 2, to make landfall on the Philippines in central Luzon before moving through the area, probably suffering quite heavily because of the mountainous backbone of Luzon. Then into the South China Sea, where it will likely rapidly intensify. And I mean, looking at that 70-knot storm in the center of Laos, I really wouldn't be ruling out a major typhoon equivalent landfall on the central part of Vietnam, maybe with winds of 100 to 105 knots if I was to extrapolate that. And the conditions are certainly there. The storm could rapidly intensify right up towards landfall, in fact, and it could be a very, very strong storm indeed, a Category 3 strength storm, which would be the strongest storm to threaten Vietnam since VAMCO of 2020. Let's take a little look at the multi-model diagnostic plot right now. Taking a look at what the models are saying, the HWRF calling for a Category 3 landfall in the Philippines. Can't completely rule that out right now, considering the storm has about 24 hours of pretty optimum conditions before landfall. Wind chill will be remaining low, maybe rising a little bit as it goes over the Philippines, but once it gets into the South China Sea, it is absolutely nothing for at least the first day before it does come up a little bit, and that might hurt the storm quite a little. Sea surface temperatures remaining very good for the rest of the storm's life, and mid-level humidity as well, looking really sharp for the storm, and it's basically going to be beelining it west at this stage. There's been a bit of discussion whether it could make it into the North Indian Ocean. Not one spaghetti model track, which you're looking at right now, even takes it as far into as central Thailand, so definitely not making it to the North Indian Ocean, that's for sure. What is concerning here on the GEFS ensembles is quite a few pink tracks. That means winds over 100 knots. The GEFS especially is expecting quite a strong storm out of this system, and it is a very plausible forecast at that. So here's a look at the actual GFS model. They're calling for a strong, maybe Category 2 typhoon landfall on the Philippines, which is quite rare from the GFS. They generally don't go this high, and especially considering the size of the storm as well, it can be very hard to make an accurate intensity prediction as a forecast model, especially one with the resolution that the GFS has. So the GFS generally struggles on these smaller systems quite a lot. So for it to get a forecast out like this is a very concerning sign indeed. Initializing it with winds of 34 knots, as you can see with the greens indicating gale force winds, and taking it into central Luzon as a typhoon, and a strong one at that, as indicated by the purple winds. Let's take a little look long term. You can see later into the model run, you can make out a pretty strong Category 1, maybe Category 2 typhoon moving into just kind of towards the west of Hong Kong, north of Hainan, into extreme southern China. That would be one to be watching out for. And the main threat out of all of these systems in the South China Sea and the Philippine Sea is, of course, the rainfall. This storm's going to be quite a wet one, especially around the center of it. The core of the storm could be packing up to 10 inches of rain. That's 250 millimeters. And like I said earlier, the GFS not being the most highest resolution model, isolated totals up to 20 inches, which is 500 millimeters if possible in extreme mountainous terrain. And you can see everywhere in the South China Sea over the next sort of 15 days, expecting somewhere in the realm of 15 to 25 inches of rain. That's massive amounts of rainfall. So nearly 3/4 of a meter of rainfall in some areas. Parts of Hainan could pick up rainfall totals like that. that. Vietnam is going to be drenched from this system. Being Noru, it's going to be absolutely saturated, and Vietnam already well into the monsoon season. They don't need this sort of rainfall because this is just going to cause extreme flooding in many places. Let's jump into some satellite imagery right now. Here's a look at Noru on the IR satellite imagery. It's firing up some pretty good convection around the -85, -90 degree mark in some places. Certainly a very typical September storm, that's for sure. However, it could be stronger than most, impacting the Philippines as a Category 3 typhoon. Certainly on the cards, that's for sure. There will be live coverage of Noru on this channel as well, especially if it does get to a very serious intensity, which is possible. I mean, the only thing that's preventing this from getting up to a crazy intensity like Category 4 or Category 5 is the time that it has to landfall. I'm not saying it is 100% out of the question. We can't rule out a Category 4. We can definitely rule out a Category 5, but it's certainly a very unlikely possibility considering the proximity of this storm to the Philippines. Taking a look at the visible satellite imagery, brightest day over there right now, but the outer bands of the storm starting to come ashore on the northern parts of Luzon. Very underpopulated area, so it's not like it's going to be an extreme risk to people in that area. Well, the outer bands won't be, but you can just see it's really rotating itself up quite nicely. It's got a very nice tight CDO structure. It's got an ion microwave satellite imagery. It would not take much for this storm to just completely dig out a pinhole eye in 24 hours. I mean, it's a storm that just really seems quite tame and quite calm right now, but it's a storm that can also completely surprise us, and it could get up towards Category 3 or Category 4 status. So anyone on Luzon really needs to watch this storm incredibly closely, and even as far south as sort of Catanduanes Island into Manila as well, really have to watch this storm with both eyes because it could end up being a very serious threat. Sea surface temperatures overlaid on the water vapor satellite imagery. Let me just say it's a very moist environment. It's not going to have a problem on that front. The only dry area is behind it. But sea surface temperatures are very favourable for the storm, around 30 degrees Celsius where it is right now. In the South China Sea, it will be 30 to 31 degrees Celsius. So it really can get its act together quite quickly on these sort of conditions, both atmospheric and thermodynamic. So the storm has a very promising life ahead of it. Not so much so for the Philippines, however. They could get clobbered by this storm, and in a very unexpected way. Models haven't really been picking up on this system until about now, and then to have the GFS call for a Category 2 strength storm, it certainly is a little bit of a reality check, seeing how fast these systems can form and rapidly develop. So make sure you are up to date on this storm. There's no better way to do that than by subscribing to the Force 13 channel. Follow our outlets as well. Join the Discord server to keep up to date on the tropics and chat with like-minded people. Leave a like on the video, subscribe, and tell us how we can improve in the comment section down below. But that's all from us. Catch you on the next storm. Goodbye.